All right, to set up your development environment, first you need to head over to microsoft.com/net/core. On this page, you can see the installation instructions for your operating system. So if you're a Windows user, the simplest way is to install Visual Studio 2017. And this will bring all the components you need. So you don't need to do anything else. But in this course, I'm not going to use Visual Studio. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, which is a very lightweight and fast editor. It's not a full IDE like Visual Studio, but it's a very powerful cross-platform code editor. So whether you're using Windows, Linux, or Mac, you can use Visual Studio Code, which we call VS Code. Now, what I want you to do is, in this course for the next few hours, forget about Visual Studio and let's build this application using VS Code. I know that you might be used to using Visual Studio, but trust me, VS Code is much better. In fact, I personally have not used Visual Studio for over a year. So, if you're on Windows on this page, go to Command Line. You need to download and install .NET Core SDK. And then, to get Visual Studio Code, simply head over to code.visualstudio.com. Now, back to this page. If you're a Linux or a Mac user, once again, you can go to this page. And on this page, you can see the instructions for installing .NET Core on your version of Linux. The instructions are very easy. You simply copy-paste a few commands in terminal and download .NET SDK. And once again, you head over to code.visualstudio.com to get VS Code. Once you install VS Code, you need to add a few extensions so you can write C# code in it. So, first we need to go to the command palette. On Mac, the shortcut is Shift, Command, and P. On Windows is Shift, Control, P. So here's the command palette. Type install ext, short for extension. And now if you scroll down, you can see this command here, install extensions. Here you can see the extensions that I have installed. So I've got this Angular v2 TypeScript snippets. And with this, we can easily create an Angular component or a service by using a code snippet. And I'm going to show you how this works later in the course. So to install this extension or any other extensions, simply type its name here, like Angular v2. And now you can see all the extensions available in VS Code Gallery. In front of each extension, you see this install button. So simply install it, and then you need to reload VS Code for the extension to take effect. Now let's go back and see what other extensions I have installed here. I've got another extension, ASP.NET Helper, which makes it easier to develop ASP.NET MVC applications. I've got auto import, which is extremely powerful. When you're writing TypeScript code, you have to constantly go on top of the file and add import statements. With this extension, you can automatically import the classes you have used in the current module. Again, I'm going to show you how this works later in the course. I also have Beautify, which is for formatting JavaScript and HTML code. It's not really essential, but it's a nice thing to have. Now, C# and C# extensions are the two essential plugins that you need to install. It will give you syntax highlighting, code completion, and so on. I also have Docker here, but this is not necessary. It just gives you syntax highlighting when you are working with Docker files. Here's another extension, which is optional, MS SQL. So with this, you can connect to a SQL Server database, look at your tables, write queries, and so on. And finally, here's another extension, REST client. Again, this is optional. With this, you can call RESTful endpoints. Now, these are the extensions that I have been using, but there are hundreds or thousands of extensions available in VS Code Gallery. So feel free to go and explore them on your own. And now finally, we need to install a couple of node packages. One is Yeoman, which is a web scaffolding tool for modern web applications. So in Visual Studio, when you create a new project, you automatically get a bunch of folders and files that come from a template. VS Code doesn't have this feature, so we need to use Yeoman to generate a template for our new project. So npm install -g Yo. Now Yo is just an engine. We can install templates on top of this engine. So the template we're going to use for an ASP.NET Core and Angular 2 application is called generator-ASP.NET Core-SPA. So let's quickly recap. If you want to use Visual Studio, you need to install Visual Studio 2017. Otherwise, if you don't want to use Visual Studio, which is the approach I'm going to take, first you need to install .NET Core SDK. Then you need to install VS Code as your editor. You add the extensions that I told you about. And finally, you install Yo and generator-ASP.NET Core-SPA. Now, on top of all these, we also need SQL Server. When you install Visual Studio 2017, it automatically comes with a lightweight version of SQL Server, which is called SQL Express. If you're using a Mac or Linux, you don't have Visual Studio 2017. So you need to install SQL Server using a Docker image. And that's what I'm going to show you in the next lecture.